Here's how you can ruin your life in one night. He arrives and steps out of his vehicle carrying a very strange briefcase. He then walks through what looks like a warehouse until he reaches a counter. He hands over a wad of cash, and the staff counts it before giving him $10,000 in square-shaped chips. James Bennett is a gambling addict and he's about to bet it all. He locks eyes with a woman. They seem to know each other, but he continues on his way. He walks a bit further until he finally enters the gaming room. He weaves through the other players with a single objective in mind: to play blackjack. When he gets to the table, he puts everything down. That's right, all his money on a single hand. The dealer starts dealing, and he has 19, so he stands. In this game, it's you against the house. Whoever gets closest to 21 wins, but if you go over, you lose everything. He won the hand, so the dealer pays him double his bet, but he bets it all again. Now it's $20,000 the dealer deals, and now he has a 15. If he gets any card above a 6, he'll lose everything. He takes a risk and asks for another card. He gets incredibly lucky with a perfect blackjack, so he wins double. He grabs the chips, glances at the cameras, and puts everything back on the table. Now it's $80,000, but the problem with good luck is that it doesn't last forever. He keeps a little and plays again. He asks for another round, and this hand he has a 14. He asks for one more and goes over 21. He could have walked away with his winnings, but he decides to try one more time to recover what he lost. The impressed dealer looks at the supervisor. The supervisor signals him to continue, but now James is extremely agitated. The dealer deals and James manages to get 20, but the house gets 21. Now he has truly lost everything. This guy has a serious gambling problem, so much so that it's going to ruin his life tonight. His addiction becomes clear when Neville, who saw everything, approaches to try and talk, but James brushes him off and leaves. The man goes after him again. James can't control his addiction and offers to bet his last $5,000 on whoever draws the highest card. His bodyguard fetches a deck and hands it to Neville, who draws the first card. He shows it, and it's a king, almost the highest card. James laughs ironically, draws his card, and it's a tragic 3. He's just lost even more money. This man is a loan shark and offers him credit, but James already knows what these people are like, so he refuses. However, he does something foolish. He goes up some stairs and walks towards the camera room where they monitor and see everything that happens. He enters the door and sees a mysterious man. This is Lee, the owner of the entire place. James Bennett asks him to lend him another $10,000. Another! Meaning he already owes him more money. To be exact, Bennett owes Lee $270,000. When it comes to debts, these people don't mess around and can do terrible things to get back the money they lent. Lee is fed up and gives him an ultimatum. He wants his $270,000 in 7 days. James looks out the window and an idea sparks. A terrible idea. He goes to Neville and asks to borrow money. That's right, he wants to pay off one debt with another debt. He asks him to lend him $50,000, and the man agrees, but with a 20% interest rate. So he goes back to the counter, pays Lee $40,000 and is left with only $10,000 to gamble with. Lee just looks at him sadly. He returns to the blackjack table and bets the $10,000 while anxiety consumes him from within. The woman deals and Jim gets 21, so he doubles the bet. This time he's incredibly lucky, turning 20,000 into 40,000 and 40,000 into 80,000. He plays quickly and without control. It looks almost compulsive. Everyone starts watching him as the stakes get higher and higher, and his good luck brings him up to $240,000. However, instead of cashing out and paying off part of his debt, he goes to the roulette wheel. And yes, he decides to bet it all on black. The betting closes, and the ball starts spinning. Everyone in the place is paying attention to what's about to happen. The ball finally stops on 19 red. He lost everything and now owes $230,000 to Lee and $50,000 extra to this mafioso. He's in very serious trouble. When he leaves the place, it's already daytime. He wasted his entire night gambling, and the worst part is he only has 7 days to come up with more than $250,000. This is a practically impossible task, as he works as a literature professor, and his salary doesn't even come close to the amount he owes. He practically hates his job and feels a lot of apathy towards life. Remember the girl he made eye contact with earlier? Well, she's also his literature student and the only one who knows about his other life. But between the two of them, we can see a bit of chemistry. Now he only has 6 days left to get the money and does what many would do in his situation. He turns to his family. He tries to borrow from his mother, but it turns out he's asked her for money before. This woman has a small fortune, as she comes from a very wealthy family, and her son always grew up in a privileged environment. But addictions don't distinguish between gender, age, or socioeconomic status. However, his mother refuses to lend him the money. Benno doesn't give up and looks for another loan shark. This time, however, he's going to someone very dangerous. A mysterious driver picks him up and takes him to Frank, who, among many other things, is a loan shark who already knows that he owes money to the Korean and Neville. He talks with him and tries to negotiate a bit, but they don't reach any agreement because borrowing that much money would be very expensive. His options are running out. James is a person who doesn't seem to care about anything and feels his life has no meaning. Metaphorically, that's why he teaches classes on the philosopher Albert Camus, who talks about absurdity and the meaning of existence. Everything gets more complicated when the mobster starts calling him on the phone. first in a somewhat friendly manner, but quickly the conversation turns more intimidating. The call ends when Neville gives him a deadline, telling him he wants his money by Monday and will also keep his car as a kind of collateral. The stress begins to impact other areas of his life. While teaching a class, he rages at a student for using his cell phone, explodes, and kicks everyone out of the classroom, except for Lamar. Lamar is a basketball prospect. He plays in college leagues, but he confesses to James that he has many problems. No one knows, but his knee is badly injured. His family is having financial problems, and his mother needs an operation. He has 5 days left, and despair slowly begins to take over James. He bet on a basketball game his student was playing in, but once again things go wrong for him. While showering, he sees his car being towed away on his right, and on his left he sees that he lost the money he bet on the game, which causes a fit of frustration. He knows he's sunk. Just then, his mother arrives to give him a new phone and talk seriously with him. She asks if he's in trouble and if he still needs the money, to which James lies, saying no. His mother replies, "I don't know when to believe you anymore." Unfortunately, people with addictive behavior almost always end up losing the trust of their loved ones. The woman tells him that the mobster called her house. James confesses that he owes a lot of money and that if he doesn't pay it, they'll break every bone in his body and then go after his family. But his mother gets furious. He tells her he can't control it, but even so, his mother decides to help him get out of the abyss he's in. Finally, light at the end of the tunnel. Through inheritances and divorces, this woman has quite a bit of money, so she goes with her son to the bank and asks to withdraw $260,000 in cash. Initially, they are suspicious of her, but after a brief explanation, they hand over the money. It's clear she's tired of the situation, and that this is definitely not the first time something like this has happened. Through tears, his mother simply leaves. It seems that our James will finally get out of debt. However, let's remember that James Bennett doesn't have much willpower when it comes to gambling. Now he only has 4 days left to settle his biggest debt. While waiting for the bus at the university, he runs into his student Amy, who offers him a ride. They go to a secluded place to talk a bit. Clearly she likes him, and he's definitely attracted to her. But what do you think he did with the money? Pay his debts? He decided to try and double it by gambling, only in a worse place than he was used to. Literally and metaphorically, he's in a worse place each time. He takes Amy to the casino, where there are many more people who are also addicted like him. People who need to bet more and more to feel the same level of pleasure and excitement. It's not a vice, it's an addiction that can develop like with any other substance. They find a table and start playing. A man asks him, "How far do you plan to go?" To which James replies, "As far as possible." He wins the first hand. This time, it seems he'll be lucky. The game continues, and we can see how James feels ecstatic. He enjoys it immensely. It seems like it's the only moment in his life where he truly feels good and experiences a sense of pleasure from doing it. But this is destroying him and putting his loved ones in danger. He keeps putting in more and more money. Minutes turn into hours, but he keeps playing. He keeps putting in 10,000 by 10,000 until finally the table is empty and everything ends. He had the exact money to pay all his debts and get back on his feet. He held the key to his freedom in the palm of his hand, but chose to throw it away. He just lost everything. The student takes him to her apartment, where they talk a bit and many things happen, but they were being watched by the loan sharks, who have him under close surveillance. Now he only has 3 days left to get the money, and while waiting for the bus, things start to get ugly. Noticing the vehicles, he runs into an alley but is surrounded. Neville walks towards him. He's very angry because James stopped answering his phone and is ignoring him. He pushes him against the wall and asks if he doesn't care about dying. To which James replies, "Everyone dies." Neville realizes that James has no self-worth, so he decides to go after his loved ones. He asks about Lamar, his basketball student, and tells him to give him his number to protect him. James gives him a fake number, and obviously Neville realizes, gets furious, and swears revenge. Night falls, and James plans to do something terrible. He takes a gun, turns up the music, and starts drinking uncontrollably. He wants to put an end to all his problems, but in the end, he decides not to. There's still a little hope in him. The next day, he receives a visit from Lee. James confesses that he doesn't have a single penny and sees no way of getting the money. Lee asks him, "How can I collect?" Without shame, James says, "Lend me another $100,000. Another characteristic of gambling addiction is trying to recover lost money by betting even more, but at this point, it's the only solution he sees. Obviously, Lee is outraged and tells him to get lost. It's Monday, the payment deadline with Neville, and these people don't mess around. To scrape together some money, he tries to pawn his watch, but he argues with the vendor and leaves the store. However, just as he steps out, the mobster's men arrive. He turns around, and there are more. He's completely surrounded. They put him in the vehicle and drive off. They arrive at an old hangar. They get him out of the vehicle and go inside. Neville is very angry because James gave him a fake number, so he gives him a small lesson. James doesn't want his student involved in this, but Neville has a plan. To give him more time, he tells him to talk to the basketball player, so he wins a game, but by a maximum of 8 points, because he will bet on the game. This way, it will be a sure bet, and he'll win more money. But if he doesn't succeed, Neville assures him that his little girlfriend Amy will suffer a lot. Now only 2 days are left, and his world is falling apart. But despite this, he hides what's happening from everyone. He wants to project an image of being okay and doesn't allow anyone to get involved in his life, and he finds it very difficult to ask for help. His anguish leads him to fight with Amy, who wants to understand him, but he becomes defensive and hides the severity of the problem. He just tells her that if he knocks on her door again, everything will be fine, and if not, it means he simply didn't make it. He leaves school, but now he has a plan that could solve everything. It's his last chance. He goes to Lamar and offers him $150,000. Where will he get it? Only he knows. But the only thing Lamar has to do is win tomorrow's game by a maximum of 8 points. Lamar asks him what happened to his face, but the professor hides the truth, only telling him that it won't help him. But if he doesn't do it, the kid will be in serious trouble. Lamar thinks about it for a bit and leaves the court. But where will James get $150,000 to bribe Lamar? Well, he goes back to Frank to ask for a loan. He tells him it's the only way he has to get out of the problem he's in. Frank tells him that if he doesn't pay, there are no rules. He'll empty the bank accounts of his entire family, and if he tries to take his own life, Frank himself will take care of killing all his loved ones. James says he understands the gravity of the situation, so Frank accepts and gives him the keys to a car. The loan he asked for was $260,000. His debts are exorbitant. Now he owes Lee, Neville, and Frank, but to execute the plan, he needs one last thing. He walks to a beauty salon where he finds Lee himself. He lies, saying he doesn't have a single cent, only to then ask him to lend him more money. The guards start beating him because it's ironic. It seems like he's making fun of him, but after continued begging, he manages to get them to lend him $150,000. His debt is immense, so there's no turning back. With everything ready, he begins to execute the plan. He gives a good portion of the money to one of his students to go to Las Vegas to bet money on the same game, and with the other portion of the money, he bribes Lamar. The game begins and everything seems fine. Lamar initially plays normally, but after halftime, he starts intentionally missing shots. The problem is he makes it too obvious, and his coach decides to pull him from the game. Now James has lost total control of what might happen. Everyone is very stressed, and time keeps ticking. However, the opposing team starts to catch up, so they put the kid back in. He has little time left to fulfill the agreement, so he gets to work. He scores shot after shot and plays impeccably until the game finally ends. He fulfilled the deal. And to leave alive and be completely free of debts with Neville, he hands him an envelope with the money he borrowed at the beginning plus interest. He's free of one debt, and finally, they'll leave Amy alone, but he still owes an absurd amount of money to Frank and Lee. The good news is that since he also bet on the game, he got a lot of cash. The problem is that it's only enough to pay one of the two, and to solve this, he has a very bad idea. He calls Frank to tell him he's gathered everything to pay him and sets up a meeting in Koreatown, a very seedy underground casino where Lee is also waiting for him. Metaphorically, that ugly casino represents that he's in an even worse place. To get out of this, he's going to attempt the biggest madness of his life. He wants to bet everything on roulette. If he wins, the money doubles, he gets enough to pay both, and he saves his life. But if he loses, it's over. The place looks like an abandoned factory, but that's just the facade. They arrive with Lee's men, who were already waiting for him. He keeps moving through the place, mentally preparing himself for what he's about to do. He finally reaches the casino area, sees the roulette wheel and Mr. Lee. He tells him he has all his money, but that he also owes Frank. So he'll put everything on the roulette wheel. They try to stop him, but it's a neutral place, so no one can do anything. What he's doing is crazy. He starts pulling money out of his bag, attracting the attention of the people, who fall silent to see what's about to happen. He walks to the table and puts all the money on the table. He turns to the dealer and says, "All on black." The employee turns to the casino manager, who says they are still playing. The bets close and the machine starts spinning. Everyone falls silent, and the only thing heard is the roulette wheel spinning until the ball finally stops. 22, black. He did it. Everyone sighs with relief. He announces that he was playing for Lee and for Frank, and then says, "In fact, I'm not even a gambler, because if we define people by their behaviors, then we don't open up the possibility of those behaviors changing. I believe that as long as there's a tomorrow, there's a chance to be someone different from what you've always been." He leaves the establishment and starts unbuttoning his shirt. Now he's more comfortable and starts running. He's a free man. He doesn't owe anyone anything anymore. That's why he runs, because he's no longer tied down. He runs until he finally reaches Amy's apartment and knocks on the door. These types of stories are very exciting to watch, but in reality, it's a horrible life. Gambling addiction, like any other addiction, brings serious consequences but can be treated. If you think it's becoming a problem for you, don't hesitate to get professional help. You don't have to go through this alone. You don't have to be self-sufficient. Sometimes willpower isn't enough and professional help is needed. Timely treatment can save you years of suffering and pain, and not just you, but your loved ones too. If you made it this far, I thank you with all my heart. Your support means a lot to me. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I invite you to do so right now. And if you want to give me a summary and analysis proposal, leave it in the comments.